let's zoom out a little bit and try to understand what this kind of behavior from Liz Cheney and the professional staff on the committee means for the investigation itself. I'm now convinced that they had no interest in finding out what happened on January 6th, September 11th. All these dates to keep track of. We don't have, they're hiding the videos. They won't answer basic questions about how many undercover law enforcement were there on that day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But just to your conclusions, tell me what they are. Do you think this was a good faith effort to find out what happened that day?
Well, no. And I'm guided to a great extent by, again, Chairman Loudermilk. The whole Loudermilk, the House Admin Oversight Committee investigation, to some extent, and he'll have to speak for himself, I might have started some of that in that when all these allegations came out about me, alleging that when I was representing Cassidy, I was doing all of these coaching. I said, well, there's videotape. All I need to do is get the videotape and show it, and that will exonerate me. And I was having trouble getting that videotape. So I called up Chairman Loudermilk and I said, look, I just need some help on this. There are documents that I need for a matter that's personal to me that I'm working on. Can you get me the videotapes of my representation of Cassidy? Because that will, to a large extent, vindicate me. And he said, okay, sure, we'll get that. And he realized, he's like, they're all destroyed. Like, he realized not only were the documents, these videotapes, all destroyed, and this is not speculation, he has letters from Benny Thompson saying, we destroyed the videotapes because we got advice. We didn't have to keep
videotapes of what?
Of all the witnesses who were deposed, right? So when I was sitting next to all of the witnesses who provided testimony.
Why would you destroy those videotapes?
Well, you would wonder why. Now, what the committee says, well, we saved the transcript, so we didn't need to keep the video. Well, that...
Was it expensive to keep video?
Exactly the opposite. In fact, as a legal matter, more technical, it's the videotape that's the evidence. The transcript's just simply an aid to that because lots of things...
So they destroyed all the evidence.
Well, that's what Chairman Loudermilk has made his mission, and he has been dogged in that. And it is Chairman Loudermilk's, if I can speak for him, firm conclusion that, in fact, the evidence was manipulated.
Chairman Loudermilk, I mean, the House is in Republican hands. They have a speaker who's third from the presidency. His name is Mike Johnson of Louisiana. He could instantly reveal all of this stuff to the public, to whom it belongs, including the many tens of thousands of hours of videotape from January 6th. Mm-hmm. But they're not doing that. Why is Speaker Johnson allowing this stuff to remain secret at the very moment when Kamala Harris and the rest of the Democratic Party is campaigning for president on lies about January 6th? Why not release it all and let the public know? It's their house. It's their property. They own it. They own this government. Well, I'm totally confused as to why Speaker Mike Johnson is doing that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's perhaps an issue above my pay grade, but at the same time, things were destroyed. In fact, as I recall, perhaps even...
This is insane.
Your offices had an opportunity to look at a lot of the videotape. And not
a lot of the videotape, but, 1/10 of 1% of the existing classified videotape, and it showed that there was peace inside the Capitol and that uniformed law enforcement were allowing people into the Senate chamber at the same moment they're telling us it's an insurrection. So, the videotape that we got, which is a tiny percentage of the existing classified videotape, showed that their story about January 6th is a complete lie. It's totally made up.
Yeah. I heard a rumor, and you can tell me if it's not true, that when some of your producers first started looking through the videotape, there were all sorts of annotations and there were all sorts of cross-references to allow it to be searched. Nobody knew that it was someone affiliated with you was looking at it, and that then subsequently, when it was learned that perhaps an outside force associated with you was looking at the videotape, all those annotations disappeared.
Yes.
Now, that might be false, but that's what I heard.
That's correct. And I got fired shortly after and was attacked, by people I worked with at Fox News for daring to air videotape that belongs to the public that shows an unexpurgated account of what actually happened. So the complicity of institutions in Washington in maintaining the lie that January 6th was an insurrection by Trumpists is complete. Everyone was involved in the conspiracy, actually, from what I can tell.
Yeah. I think one of the lessons to take from this is that never again should there be a congressional committee that's not bipartisan. Now, if there was an error that was made, the fact you cannot have Congress running what is quasi-criminal investigation like this ever again.
Did we ever find out how many undercover law enforcement agents were at January 6th? Do we know that?
I don't know. Again, I'm just reading the newspaper like everyone else at this point on those issues.
So that's a core question, though. Like, if we're trying to understand what happened, just as an attorney who was involved, and I know you were, involved in trying to help witnesses, but big picture, why wouldn't the public be allowed to know that? Do you know?
No, clearly anything that's conducted in the name of the people belongs to the people, just like the building in which that investigation is conducted
the
belongs
people's
to
house.
the people.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the investigation belongs. And I mean, I don't know for sure, but certainly what I had heard was that as Congress was turning over, there were a number of documents that were in the possession of Congress that were going to be shipped off to the archives, but they knew that when the new incoming Speaker McCarthy took power, that he was just going to call those documents back from the archives. And so what happened, and again, I don't know this firsthand, but what I'd heard was that a lot of these documents were then shipped over to the executive branch to allow the executive branch to give them to the archives, so that when McCarthy comes into power and says, hey, I want my documents back, the archivist says, no, this came from the executive branch. You have no power. You don't get these documents. We gave them all over to Secret Service or whomever. And that's been really thwarting congressional inquiry into what happened.
It's so corrupt, it's hard to believe this is our government.
We did an interview with a woman called Casey Means. She's a Stanford-educated surgeon and really one of the most remarkable people I have ever met. In the interview, she explained how the food that we eat, produced by huge food companies, Big Food, in conjunction with pharma, is destroying our health, making this a weak and sick country. The levels of chronic disease are beyond belief. What Casey Means, who we've not stopped thinking about ever since, is the co-founder of a healthcare technology company called Levels, and we are proud to announce today that we are partnering with Levels. And by proud, I mean sincerely proud. Levels is a really interesting company and a great product. It gives you insight into what's going on inside your body, your metabolic health. It helps you understand how the food that you're eating, the things that you're doing every single day are affecting your body in real time. You put stuff in your mouth, speaking for myself anyway, and you don't think about it. You have no idea what you're putting in your mouth, and you have no idea what it's doing to your body. But over time, you feel weak and tired and spacey, and over an even longer period of time, you can get really sick. So it's worth knowing what the food you eat is doing to you. The Levels app works with something called a continuous glucose monitor, a CGM. You can get one as part of the plan, or you can bring your own. It doesn't matter. But the bottom line is, big tech, big pharma, and big food combine together to form an incredibly malevolent force, pumping you full of garbage, unhealthy food with artificial sugars, and hurting you and hurting the entire country. So with Levels, you'll be able to see immediately what all of this is doing to you. You get access to real-time personalized data, and that's a critical step to changing your behavior. Those of us who like Oreos can tell you firsthand. This isn't talking to your doctor at an annual physical, looking backwards about things you did in the past. This is up to the second information on how your body is responding to different foods and activities, the things that give you stress, your sleep, et cetera, et cetera. It's easy to use. It gives you powerful, personalized health data, and then you can make much better choices about how you feel. And over time, it'll have a huge effect. Right now, you can get an additional 2 free months when you go to levels.link/Tucker. That's levels.link/Tucker. This is the beginning of what we hope will be a long and happy partnership with Levels and Dr. Casey Means.
It certainly had a corrupting impact on me in terms of what happened, how government abused power in a way that should not happen. But it also, you cannot have an ostensible truth-finding operation that has a political objective. The two are not compatible. If you're going to be searching for the truth, it cannot be in a
and also, I mean, look, the truth is the Capitol Hill police used deadly force against an unarmed woman on January 6th. There was never any investigation into why they murdered Ashley Babbitt, which they did. Michael Byrd, who had demonstrated reckless behavior with a loaded firearm, leaving a loaded Glock in the men's room of the Capitol, he murdered Ashley Babbitt. That's my view. But we can't speak authoritatively because there was no investigation into shooting an unarmed woman in the Capitol. The whole thing, like, That's insane. Were there any Republicans, do you know, in the Congress who demanded an answer to these questions? It doesn't seem like there were. It seems bipartisan, actually.
Right. It's been hard-pressed. And I know as part of my efforts, I was seeking, I said, well, I want to have all the internal staff emails. Let me see the emails that were going on while all of the things that I was interested in were happening. And I'm getting a lot of resistance. Well, we really don't want to, we don't think it's appropriate to turn over staff emails. It's like, Wyatt, we're the public. If there were emails about me that were being sent by official staff, there shouldn't be some proprietary reason, or there shouldn't be some Queensberry rules that says, well, we don't think it's couth for us to be turning over the private emails of our staffers. Well, when I was working in the White House, every single document that it was all presidential records, everything was searchable, everything has obligated to be turned over. Why is Congress not subject to those same rules? Why do we not have that same transparency? Why are we clinging to some esoteric notion that, well, it just wouldn't be gentlemanly or it wouldn't be couth for us to reveal staff emails because then maybe they might do that to us? It's like, no, how about you guys only do things in the name of the people that you're willing to stand behind? How about that being the rule? But that doesn't seem to be.
So how is this, we were just talking about this off camera, but maybe you would like to talk about it on camera, as the product of Washington, son of someone who worked for the government. I mean, exactly the same position. How has this changed your view of how the city operates in its institutions?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's shocking. Of course, sort of the psychic break of all of that. As we had talked, we had almost the same upbringing, Washington, D.C., private schools. Everyone who was my friend were the children of people who were either in the private sector or public sector working in these revered institutions. And I grew up, and until extremely recently, had nothing but the highest respect for our agencies and the media. I mean, as I said, if Walter Cronkite said it, it was true. If
what year in high school were you?
I was class of 1984, so I'm a little older than you.
3 years. But same world.
Same exact world, all of my friends, and grew up having a dad who was from that world doing work that I really respected. That was what I believed. And even while working in the White House, never had a concept that there was any sort of conflict between the institutional sort of intelligence world and us in the White House. One of my jobs, as I said, I was the compliance person when I came in. And so we did all of the onboarding. I brought all of these folks in. And it was my job to hear the rules of Washington briefing for all of the White House staff. Well, I was also the adjunct to the National Security Council. So it's sort of like a intel arm advisors to the president, which are career staffers primarily. And I thought, well, we're all on the same team now. Trump, we've just come in. I had no idea that Comey was having interviews with Mike Flynn, at the same time. I had no idea this was happening. But I thought, well, we're all on the same team. Let me just invite all of the NSC folks in for the same briefing that I'm doing for the staff, because we're all on the same team. And I just naively
It's only been 8 years, but it seems crazy to even think something like that
naive.
now.
And so literally I do these briefings and I get phone calls 2 days later from the Washington Post saying, we have 3 people who are in your briefing who all said you said X, and that this is this horrible thing for Trump. And I said, that's not true. Why would 3 people randomly select you, Washington Post reporter, to tell the exact same story to? This kind of sounds like an op against the Trump administration. It was going to highlight, it was something that was not going to paint Trump in a fair light, that the ethics lawyer had said, whatever the rules were. And that's when I realized we're not all on the same team here, that there's this operation that's going on. And there's a real sort of psychic disconnect for me, because I had tremendous respect for these. And I had tremendous respect for the FBI and the DOJ. And I have to say, in all candor, with respect to me, as far as I can tell, they've been honorable in everything they've done with respect to me. But what you see on TV, there's a lack of trust. And my children's friends have zero institutional faith in these organizations that I grew up revering.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there
and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.